Now that you have your isometric grid folded from your sheet of paper, I'd like to show you how to make a really cool three-dimensional object. Now, if you followed my previous video on how to make the isometric grid, you'll notice that all of your folds are going the same way, meaning that the way I have my paper right now, all of my folds, both the diagonal isometric folds and the vertical folds, are all valley folds, right? So you can see the paper sort of pointing down like a valley. What we need to do is we need to take these three vertical folds and reverse them so that they're opposite the diagonal folds. So we're going to keep the diagonal folds valley folds, but turn these vertical folds into mountain folds. So let's flip my paper over and just reverse those folds. And you really want to have nice, crisp creases. Run over them with an origami bone or your fingernail or some other writing utensil, something like that, okay? Now, what you'll notice is that the paper will start to almost curl on its own, right? Mine's starting to actually curve into maybe a cylinder. So let's try doing that just to see what happens as I start to sort of curl it. Now this point here, it's going to pop, watch this. Okay, I don't know if you saw that or heard that, but it kind of popped. And we're just going to wrap this around into a cylinder shape. And as I overlap these flaps right here, I get this kind of cool, I call it an obelisk. All right. And it looks kind of neat when you look down inside it. You've got a square on the top. Right? And you could certainly use some tape or some glue to hold those together. But let's keep curling it up like you're rolling up a poster. And you want to make these match up here. And this to me is kind of what I'm really excited about here. So you've got this sort of triangle right here. Again, you have to sort of add some tape or some glue. And you get these neat little hexagons as you look down inside through the center. You get this really cool obelisk. It's just a neat little object that you can make here. But let's talk about sort of the geometry of this a little bit. So you can certainly tape that. It's a really cool looking shape. And I wondered what it would be called, but I realized it's just a stack of 4 anti-prisms. So let's talk about that just a little bit. So if I unfold it, and I'll grab my scissors here, and I'm going to cut along one of these vertical folds here. So everybody knows about a prism, right? Like a triangular prism or a rectangular prism, where if it's a triangular prism, the top and bottom are triangles. They're parallel to each other. The sides are rectangles. But when I overlap like this, right, you want to make sure that this edge here aligns with this edge here. I'm going to sort of hold those together like that. You get a square anti-prism. All right, so here's a square. If I flip it over, you'll see another square, but those squares do not align, right? The orientation of the top square and the orientation of the bottom square are not in alignment. The bottom square is rotated 45 degrees from the top square. I like to describe it to my students as if you take a triangular prism and you just twist it, right? Twist the bottom a little bit. So you get this triangular anti-prism. Now if I were to wrap this up more, sorry, I think I said triangular anti-prism. This would be a square anti-prism. This will be the triangular anti-prism. So if I just hold those together, there's your triangular anti-prism, right? Triangle on top, triangle on bottom. They're not in alignment. Okay, the top or the bottom has been rotated, right? Giving it this really cool shape. So when you take your isometric grid and wrap it up into that obelisk, it's really just a stack of these anti-prisms. So just a fun little shape that you can create using your folded isometric grid. Again, being able to take an ordinary sheet of paper and transform it into what I think is a pretty beautiful three-dimensional object. So have fun.